I need to get this out because I'm about to do something that's either going to make me look like a genius or land me in hot water with every married couple on this site who thinks communication solves everything. Spoiler alert, it doesn't solve jack when your wife has been running a Discord server dedicated to mocking you with her friends for the past year and a half. So, let me back up. I'm Julian, 34. Been married to Kira for 6 years. We met through mutual friends when I was 26. She was 25. And honestly, those first few years were good. Not perfect, but good enough that when she suggested getting married after 2 years of dating, I thought, why not? She worked in marketing at a tech startup. I was doing pretty well in financial consulting. We bought a house together in my name because my credit was better, and everything looked solid from the outside. Here's where it gets fun. 3 weeks ago, Thursday afternoon, I decided to leave work early and surprise Kira for our 6th anniversary. Yeah, I know. How pathetically romantic of me, right? I stopped at this place she loves and got 24 roses, the expensive kind that actually smell like something. Picked up her favorite takeout and headed home around 2 o'clock in the afternoon instead of my usual 6. The house was quiet when I got there. Her car was in the driveway, so I figured she was working from home like usual. I put the food in the kitchen, arranged the roses in a vase, and went upstairs to find her. Our bedroom door was closed, and I could hear her talking, so I figured she was on a work call. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but her voice was carrying through the door. And what I heard made me stop dead in the hallway. She was laughing, that real genuine laugh she used to do with me back when things were actually good between us. And she said something about how I'd probably show up later with flowers like a trained dog. Her exact words. I stood there trying to process that. And then I heard her say she couldn't wait to see what pathetic gesture I'd come up with this time and how at least I was useful for paying the mortgage on time. I didn't burst in. I didn't make a scene. I just stood there in the hallway with 24 roses downstairs and Thai food getting cold on the counter, listening to my wife trash talk me to whoever was on the other end of that conversation. When she finally finished and left the bedroom to use the bathroom, I went in and looked at her laptop. She'd left it open, which honestly was stupid of her, but I guess she didn't expect me home for another 4 hours. And there it was. Discord. A private server called the Married Martyrs Club with her and 3 of her friends. Maeve and Sophia were the main ones I recognized from her college days, plus another woman I didn't know. I didn't have much time, so I grabbed my phone and started taking screenshots of everything I could see. The laptop screen was still unlocked, showing the active conversation. I navigated through the channels. There was one called Husband Horror Stories and another called Exit Strategies and one just labeled Evidence, which made my blood run cold in a way I'm not supposed to describe according to Reddit rules. So, let's just say I knew immediately this was worse than just some girls complaining about their marriages. I clicked on Husband Horror Stories first. Months of messages. Months. Kira had posted photos of me, actual photos, with comments underneath. There was one of me sleeping on the couch after a long day at work, and she'd written, Exhibit A, the spineless clown in his natural habitat. Her friends had responded with vomit emojis and laughing reactions. Another photo showed me loading groceries into the car, and she'd captioned it, at least the trained seal performs on command. Maeve had replied saying her husband was the same way, just another paycheck with legs. Sophia added that the secret was to keep them just insecure enough that they never stopped trying to please you. But the real gut punch came when I scrolled back further and found the channel where they discussed their actual relationships with other men. Kira had been texting 3 different guys from her office. She'd posted screenshots of her conversations with them. One guy named Clifford kept sending her messages about meeting up during lunch breaks. Another named Barry was more explicit, sending stuff about what hotel they should try next. The third guy's name I didn't catch because I heard the bathroom door open and had maybe 10 seconds to get out of there. I closed the laptop, walked downstairs like nothing happened, threw the roses in the trash, and ate the Thai food myself while sitting at the kitchen table. When Kira came down 20 minutes later, she acted completely normal. Asked me why I was home early. Said the flowers would have been nice if I'd actually given them to her instead of leaving them on the counter. Complained that I'd eaten without waiting for her. I just smiled and said I wanted to surprise her but got hungry. She rolled her eyes and made herself a sandwich, then went back upstairs to finish work stuff. And that's when I realized I had a choice to make. I could confront her right then, have the big dramatic showdown, probably end up getting gaslit about how I was overreacting or misunderstanding the context of her venting to friends. Or I could do what I do best, which is plan, calculate, and execute when the time was right. So, I chose option 2. For the next 2 months, I played the perfect husband. I smiled when she criticized me. I bought flowers every Friday. I took her to nice restaurants and paid for everything without complaint. I acted like the spineless clown she thought I was because I needed time to move pieces around without her noticing. First thing I did was talk to a divorce lawyer, not to file yet, just to understand what I was working with. The house was in my name only, thank God, because I'd bought it before we got married and paid the down payment myself. Our joint checking account had about $40,000 in it, money we'd both contributed to over the years. The lawyer explained what I could and couldn't do legally, and I took notes. Second thing, I started moving money. Not stealing, not hiding, just transferring my portion of our joint savings into a separate account that only I had access to. Every week, I'd move a few thousand. Make it look like regular bills or expenses. Kira never checked the bank statements because I'd always handled the finances, and she was too busy texting Clifford and Barry to notice. Third thing, I installed security cameras. Told Kira it was because of the break-ins happening 2 streets over, and she didn't question it. Got cameras for the front door, back door, driveway, and one in the living room. I wanted footage of everything just in case. But here's what really kept me going during those 2 months. I kept checking that Discord server. Kira never changed her password, never logged out, and every few days I'd wait until she was in the shower or running errands, then I'd open her laptop and screenshot everything new. It became this sick routine, like checking the news, except the headlines were all about how much my wife despised me. She posted about our anniversary dinner, the one I took her to after discovering the Discord. Wrote about how I'd tried so hard to be romantic and it just made her want to throw up. How I'd reached across the table to hold her hand and she had to resist the urge to pull away. How she'd excused herself to the bathroom 3 times just to text Clifford about their lunch plans for the following week. Maeve responded saying at least Kira's husband made good money. Sophia said hers barely earned enough to cover half the mortgage, but at least he was hot, so it evened out. Kira wrote back that she just closed her eyes and thought about shopping whenever we had sex. And honestly, that one hit different because we'd had sex maybe 4 times in the past 6 months, and apparently each time she was mentally checking out. The worst part, the channel labeled exit strategies. That's where Kira and her friends discussed their actual plans for when they decided to leave their husbands. Kira had written out a detailed timeline. She wanted to wait until I got my next promotion, which would bump my salary significantly. Then she'd file for divorce, claim she'd contributed equally to the household, and try to get half of everything, including the house value. She'd even messaged with Clifford about moving in together after the divorce, how they'd get a place downtown, how she'd be free to actually enjoy her life instead of pretending to care about someone she'd stopped respecting years ago. I screenshot all of it. Every single message, every photo, every cruel comment. Built an entire folder on my phone, backed it up to cloud storage, even printed physical copies and stored them at my parents' house. Because here's what Kira didn't know, I might have been playing the spineless clown, but I was also setting up every single piece for the moment when I'd stop playing. 2 weeks ago, I filed for divorce. Didn't tell her. Just walked into the lawyer's office with my documentation and started the process. Changed the locks on the house while she was at work. Transferred the rest of my money out of our joint account legally because the lawyer confirmed I could do that before filing became official. Sent copies of the Discord screenshots to her parents, her boss, and about 15 of our mutual friends. Then last Thursday night, exactly 2 months after I found that Discord server, I texted her. Told her I knew everything, that she could check her bank accounts and try coming home, but neither would work out the way she expected. I told her she should probably call Clifford or Barry and ask if one of them had a couch she could sleep on because I was done being her trained seal. And then I turned off my phone. I'm writing this from my parents' house because I didn't want to be home when she inevitably showed up to scream at me. My lawyer said to lay low for a few days while the divorce paperwork gets served. I turned my phone back on this morning and I've got 342 missed calls. Over 300 texts from Kira ranging from what did you do to the house is locked to where's all the money gone to answer your phone to my parents saw everything to please this isn't real. Her friends have been messaging me too, which is hilarious because they didn't even have my number before this, but apparently they got it from somewhere. Maeve sent me a long message about how I'm taking things out of context and Kira never meant any of it seriously. Sophia told me I'm ruining Kira's life over a joke between friends. But here's the thing, Reddit. I spent 2 months watching my wife laugh about me with her friends. 2 months reading about how she was planning to bleed me dry financially and move in with her affair partner. 2 months being the perfect husband while she counted down the days until she could dump me and take half of everything I'd worked for. So yeah, I pulled the rug out first. I secured my assets, protected the house I bought with my own money, and made sure everyone in her life knew exactly what kind of person she really was. Now she's dealing with the consequences, and I'm here watching it all unfold from a safe distance. Some of you are probably thinking I should have tried to talk to her first, worked things out like adults, maybe gone to therapy. But you didn't see those Discord messages. You didn't read the detailed plans she had for financially ruining me. You didn't see your own face in photos with vomit gifs attached. So, here we are. My phone is blowing up. My wife is apparently losing her mind trying to figure out where I am and how to fix this. And I'm sitting in my childhood bedroom eating my mom's cooking and feeling more at peace than I have in months. Is that messed up? Probably. Do I care? Not even a little bit. I'll update when things develop further. Because based on the intensity of these text messages, Kira isn't planning to give up quietly. And honestly, I'm curious to see just how far she'll go when she realizes the spineless clown finally grew a backbone. Update 1. Okay, so remember how I said I was curious to see how far Kira would go? Turns out the answer is pretty damn far, and also in directions I didn't see coming. Before I get into the chaos of the past week, let me address some comments from the last post because yeah, I've been reading them and some of you had questions. No, I didn't steal any money. Everything I transferred was legally mine to transfer according to my lawyer. Yes, I know some of you think I should have confronted her first. Cool. You go ahead and have a nice chat with someone who's been calling you a trained SEAL for 18 months and let me know how that works out. And to the person who said I invaded her privacy by reading the Discord, she left her laptop open in our shared bedroom in our shared house. That's not hacking. That's called being in the wrong place at the wrong time to discover your wife is trash. Anyway, where I left off, I was at my parents' house avoiding Kira's 342 calls and feeling pretty good about my life choices. That lasted exactly 2 more days. Monday morning, I'm sitting in my dad's garage helping him organize his tool collection because apparently that's what you do when you're a 34-year-old man hiding from your wife, when I hear a car pull into the driveway. My mom comes out to the garage and tells me Kira's here and she brought her mother. Great. Fantastic. Just what I needed. I told my mom to tell them I wasn't home. But my dad gave me this look like he didn't raise a coward. So, I went inside. Kira was standing in the living room with her mom. And the second she saw me, she started in. Where had I been? Why wasn't I answering her calls? What the hell did I think I was doing sending those screenshots to everyone she knew? Did I have any idea what I'd done to her life? I just stood there and waited for her to finish. Her mom jumped in saying this was all a misunderstanding, that married couples have rough patches, that I was being vindictive and cruel by airing private matters to friends and family. I asked what rough patch exactly we were discussing. The one where Kira called me a spineless clown or the one where she was planning to financially destroy me after I got my next promotion? Kira tried to say it wasn't like that. Those messages were just venting. Every wife complains about her husband sometimes. I was taking everything out of context. I pulled out my phone and started reading direct quotes. The one about how I made her want to throw up. The one about closing her eyes and thinking of shopping during sex. The detailed discussion about emptying our joint accounts after the divorce. Her mother actually had the nerve to say that what Kira discussed privately with her friends shouldn't matter because it wasn't real. It was just talk. So I asked if Clifford and Barry were just talk, too. If the hotel meetings were just talk. If the lunch breaks were just talk. That's when Kira changed tactics. She started crying, asking why I was doing this to her, saying she'd made mistakes but we could work through them. We'd been together for 8 years total, and didn't that count for something? She reached for my hand, and I stepped back. Told her not to touch me. She asked what happened to the man who brought her flowers every week, who tried so hard to make her happy. I told her that man woke up and realized his wife thought he was a joke. Then she got angry, really angry, started yelling about how I'd locked her out of her own house, how I'd stolen her money, how I'd turned everyone against her. I corrected each point. It was my house, my name on the deed, bought before we got married. The money I transferred was my money from my income. And I didn't turn anyone against her. I just showed them who she actually was. Her mom demanded I give Kira access to the house so she could get her belongings. I said fine. I'd arrange a time when I could be there with my lawyer present to make sure she only took what was actually hers. Kira said that was ridiculous. She just needed to grab clothes and personal items. Why did I have to make everything so difficult? Because you spent 18 months planning to rob me blind, Kira. That's why. My mom, bless her, had been watching this whole thing from the kitchen doorway. And she finally spoke up. She told Kira and her mother that they needed to leave, that this wasn't the place for this conversation, and that maybe they should think about why their son and husband felt the need to protect himself so thoroughly. Kira's mom got offended, said something about how my family clearly raised me to be sneaky and underhanded. My dad, who had been quiet this whole time, told her to get out of his house. They left, but not before Kira screamed that this wasn't over, that I couldn't just destroy her life and walk away, that she'd make sure I regretted this. Her mom had to physically pull her toward the car. So, that was Monday. Tuesday, I get a call from my lawyer. Turns out Kira hired her own attorney, and they're claiming the house should be considered marital property despite being in my name only because she contributed to household expenses during the marriage. My lawyer said it was a reach, but that we'd need to document everything. Prove that her contributions were minimal compared to mine. Show that I'd paid the mortgage and property taxes entirely from my own income, which meant I needed to go through 6 years of bank statements and financial records. Fun times. Wednesday, I went back to work for the first time since everything exploded. I work at a mid-sized financial consulting firm, and word had already spread because apparently Sophia's husband works in the same building as one of my colleagues, and the small world effect kicked in. 3 different people asked me if I was okay. My boss pulled me aside and asked if I needed time off. I said no, I needed normalcy, and he respected that. But here's where it gets interesting. Thursday afternoon, I get a message on LinkedIn from Clifford. Yeah, that Clifford. The one Kira was texting about hotel meetups. He tells me we need to talk, that there are things about the situation I don't understand, that Kira's been dealing with a lot at work and maybe I should cut her some slack. I'm reading this message in complete disbelief because this man really thought he could lecture me about my own wife while actively having an affair with her. I responded asking if his wife knew about his relationship with Kira. He sent back a message saying there was no relationship. They were just work friends, and I was creating drama where none existed. So I screenshot his texts with Kira, the one she'd posted in the Discord where he was explicitly discussing hotel rooms and lunch breaks, and I sent them back to him. Then I blocked him. Except here's the problem. Clifford apparently panicked and went to their manager claiming I was harassing him. Kira worked at the same company, so now there's an HR situation brewing where I'm apparently the aggressor for exposing their affair. My lawyer told me to send him copies of everything just in case this escalates into something legal. Friday, I finally agreed to let Kira come get her stuff from the house. I took the day off work, had my lawyer meet me there, and we waited. Kira showed up with her mom again, plus Maeve as moral support, I guess, and all three of them walked through the house like they were conducting an inventory. Kira tried taking furniture that we'd bought together, stuff I'd paid for. When I objected, her mom said that married couples share everything and I was being petty. My lawyer intervened and said that unless Kira had receipts proving she paid for specific items, they stayed. Kira started crying again, saying I was trying to leave her with nothing, that she'd contributed to our life together in ways that didn't show up on receipts. I asked her to specify. She said she'd maintained the household, done the shopping, organized our social calendar. I pointed out that I'd paid for all the shopping, that our social calendar mostly involved her friends who I now knew spent their time mocking me, and that maintaining the household meant she worked from home in pajamas 4 days a week while I commuted an hour each way. She took her clothes, her laptop, some books, and personal items. Then she asked for the wedding photos and the engagement ring. I said she could have the photos, but the ring was staying with me since I'd paid for it and it had been my grandmother's originally. Just reset. Her lawyer would have to fight me for it if she really wanted it that badly. That set off another screaming match. Kira accused me of being cruel and vindictive, of punishing her for venting to her friends, of trying to erase their entire marriage. I told her she'd already erased it herself with every vomit emoji and train seal comment. I was just making it official. After they left, I sat in the house by myself for a while. The place felt empty in a way it hadn't before. Even though most of the furniture was still there, I kept thinking about how I'd bought this house 7 years ago, imagining it would be full of kids and family dinners and a life I'd built with someone who actually respected me. Instead, I got 6 years of being someone's ATM with benefits. The weekend was quieter. I stayed at the house instead of my parents' place. Started reclaiming the space as my own. Saturday, I went to the hardware store and bought new locks for the doors, even though I'd already changed them, just to make sure. Went to the gym for the first time in weeks. Ran until my legs hurt. Felt better than I had in months. Sunday, Kira's dad called me. That was unexpected because her dad had always been decent to me. One of those quiet guys who didn't get involved in drama. He said he wanted to hear my side of things. That his wife and daughter had told him their version, but something didn't add up. So, I told him everything. The Discord server, the affair partners, the exit strategy, the whole thing. He was quiet for a long time. Then, he said he was sorry, that he'd raised Kira better than that he understood why I'd done what I did. He asked if there was any chance we could work things out, maybe go to counseling. I told him no. That ship had sailed the moment she posted my photo with vomit gifs. He said he respected that and that he'd talk to his wife about backing off. Monday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Kira, all from between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m. The voicemails were a mess. Some of them were her crying about how she'd made mistakes and wanted to fix things. Others were her screaming that I'd ruined everything, that Clifford had blocked her after I contacted him, that her manager was asking questions about her conduct at work, that friends were cutting her off because of the screenshots. When one voicemail in particular stood out. She said she knew I thought I'd won, that I'd successfully destroyed her life while protecting my own, but that I had no idea what I'd actually set in motion, that there were things I didn't know about, arrangements I wasn't aware of, and that when everything came out, I'd realize I'd made a huge mistake. I saved all the voicemails and forwarded them to my lawyer. Because here's the thing that's becoming increasingly clear. Kira isn't planning to accept this divorce quietly. She's regrouping, strategizing, and based on that last voicemail, she's got something else planned that she thinks will turn this situation around. And honestly, part of me wants to know what it is. Part of me is curious what card she thinks she has left to play. But the bigger part of me is just tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of the manipulation. Tired of dealing with someone who spent years viewing me as a punchline and a paycheck. I'm ready for this to be over, but based on everything that's happened this week, I'm pretty sure it's just getting started. I'll update when the next disaster inevitably hits. Update 2. Alright, Reddit. Buckle up because the arrangements Kira mentioned in her 2 a.m. voicemail? Yeah, I found out what those were, and honestly, I should have seen this coming. But apparently I'm still capable of being blindsided even after everything. First, thanks for all the comments on the last update. To the person who said I should just block Kira and move on, I hear you. But we're in the middle of divorce proceedings and my lawyer specifically said I need to keep lines of communication open for legal reasons. To the multiple people suggesting I'm being too harsh, I'd invite you to read the Discord screenshots where my wife planned to financially gut me. But I'm guessing you already made up your minds. So Tuesday of last week, I get a call from my boss asking if I can come in early for a meeting. Not a request, an actual we need to talk situation. I show up at 7 in the morning and find my boss plus someone from HR waiting in the conference room. And immediately I know this is about Kira somehow. Turns out Clifford didn't just file one harassment complaint. He filed 3. The first was about me contacting him on LinkedIn with what he called threatening messages. The second was about me sending explicit screenshots of private conversations. The third was about me creating a hostile work environment by spreading rumors about his personal life that could damage his professional reputation. I explained to HR that Clifford was having an affair with my wife, that the screenshots were evidence of that affair taken from her Discord server where she'd posted them, and that I'd contacted him once to ask if his wife knew about the situation before blocking him. My boss looked uncomfortable. HR took notes. And then they told me that while they understood this was a personal matter, Clifford worked for a client company that we did business with, and his complaints were creating problems for that relationship. They asked me to sign a statement saying I wouldn't contact Clifford again or discuss his personal life with anyone connected to either company. I signed it because my lawyer had already told me to stay away from the affair partners anyway. But the whole meeting left me furious. Clifford got to play victim after screwing my wife, and I had to sit there and take it professionally. Wednesday, I'm at the grocery store grabbing food for the week and I run into Sophia in the produce section. Remember, she's one of Kira's friends from the Discord server, the one who'd posted about keeping husbands insecure. She saw me and actually approached, which took some nerve. She wanted to talk about Kira. Said that things had gotten out of hand and maybe we all needed to calm down and reassess. I asked her if she was serious right now, standing in front of me pretending to be a mediator when I had screenshots of her encouraging my wife to emotionally manipulate me. Sophia said those messages were taken out of context, that the Discord was supposed to be a private space where women could vent frustration about their marriages without judgment. I asked her if planning financial strategies to maximize divorce settlements was venting, if posting photos of your husband with vomit emojis was venting, if coordinating affair schedules was venting. She got defensive. Said that women needed outlets for their anger in marriages where they felt trapped. I pointed out that nobody trapped Kira in our marriage, that she was free to leave at any time. She just wanted to maximize her payout first. Sophia told me I was being deliberately obtuse, that women's anger was valid even when men didn't understand it. That Kira had been dealing with a lot of pressure to be perfect, and the Discord was her way of coping. I said that was the most ridiculous justification for cruelty I'd ever heard. And if Kira was so miserable, she should have filed for divorce instead of planning to rob me. Then Sophia dropped the bomb. She told me that Kira had been talking to a therapist for the past 6 months about emotional abuse in her marriage, that there was documentation of my controlling behavior, that when this went to divorce court, I'd find out just how much evidence Kira had built up about my treatment of her. I stood there in the produce section holding a bag of apples, trying to process that. Emotional abuse. Controlling behavior. Kira had been building a counter-narrative this whole time, creating a paper trail that painted me as the villain. Sophia said I should think very carefully about how I wanted to proceed because Kira wasn't going to just roll over and let me destroy her life without consequences. I left my groceries and walked out. Thursday, my lawyer called. Kira's attorney had filed a motion claiming that I'd engaged in financial abuse by controlling the household finances, that I'd isolated her from joint decision-making about money, and that my sudden removal of funds from our joint account constituted theft of marital assets. They were requesting that I return half of everything I transferred, plus pay temporary spousal support while the divorce proceeded. My lawyer said it was a strategy. Kira was trying to establish herself as the injured party to gain leverage. We'd need to counter with documentation showing that she'd had full access to all accounts, that she'd never expressed interest in managing finances, that her contributions to household expenses were minimal compared to mine. But it meant more work, more evidence gathering, more time. Friday, Kira texted me directly. Said we needed to meet in person to discuss things like adults, that hiding behind lawyers wasn't solving anything, that we owed it to our 8 years together to at least try talking. I told my lawyer about the text, and he said it was probably a setup, that she'd try to get me to say something she could use against me. But that if I did meet her, I should record everything. Saturday afternoon, I agreed to meet Kira at a park near our house. Neutral territory, public place, and I had my phone recording in my pocket. She showed up right on time, and honestly, she looked terrible. Not in a satisfying way, just tired and worn down. Part of me almost felt bad until I remembered the vomit emojis. She started by saying she knew we were both angry and hurt, that things had spiraled out of control, that maybe if we could just talk honestly, we could find a way forward. I asked her what kind of way forward she was imagining, because from where I stood, there was no relationship left to save. Kira said she understood why I was upset about the Discord, that those messages looked bad without context, but that I had to understand how lonely she'd been in our marriage, that I worked constantly, that I'd been emotionally unavailable, that she'd felt like a roommate instead of a wife. The Discord was her way of connecting with other women who felt the same way. And yes, some of the things they said were harsh, but it was frustration talking. I asked her about Clifford and Barry. She claimed nothing physical had happened, that it was just flirting, that she'd felt invisible in our marriage and the attention from other men made her feel valued. She said she never would have actually gone through with any of it, that it was fantasy, that I'd taken private thoughts and turned them into evidence of crimes she hadn't committed. I brought up the exit strategy, the detailed plans for the divorce. Kira said every woman in an unhappy marriage thinks about leaving. That having a plan didn't mean she was definitely going to execute it. That I was treating normal thoughts as if they were actions. She said if I'd ever actually talked to her about our problems instead of just buying flowers and pretending everything was fine, maybe we could have worked things out. That got me angry. I asked her when exactly I was supposed to have this conversation. Before or after she posted my photos with vomit gifs? She said those messages were private and I'd violated her privacy by reading them. I told her privacy doesn't protect conspiracy to commit financial abuse. She said financial abuse was what I'd done by controlling all our money for 6 years. I explained that I'd never controlled anything, that she'd had access to every account, that she'd just chosen not to pay attention because she was happy letting me handle everything while she spent money freely. Kira said that was exactly the problem, that I'd created a dynamic where she felt dependent on me, where she couldn't make financial decisions without my approval, where she'd lost her autonomy. I pointed out that she had her own job and her own income and could have opened her own accounts anytime. She said I'd made her feel like she couldn't, that my attitude about money had been controlling even if I hadn't explicitly forbidden her from doing anything. I asked how my attitude controlled her when I'd literally said yes to every purchase she'd ever wanted to make. Kira started crying and said I was twisting everything. That I'd never understood how hard it was to be married to someone who made her feel inadequate. That every time I bought her gifts or paid for things or handled the finances, she felt smaller and less capable. That the Discord messages were her trying to reclaim some power in a relationship where she felt powerless. I told her that was insane. That I'd done everything she ever asked. That I'd worked extra hours to pay for the lifestyle she wanted. That I'd been exactly the husband she said she wanted until I discovered she actually thought I was a joke. Kira said maybe that was the problem, that I'd been performing husband duties without actually seeing her as a person, without understanding what she needed emotionally. We went back and forth like this for over an hour. She kept trying to reframe everything as my failure to communicate, my emotional unavailability, my creation of a power dynamic that made her feel trapped. I kept bringing up the actual things she'd written, the actual plans she'd made, the actual affairs she'd been conducting. She'd say I was taking things out of context. I'd read back exact quotes. She'd say the quotes didn't capture her intent. Eventually, I asked her what she actually wanted from this conversation. She said she wanted me to drop the divorce, to agree to marriage counseling, to give us a real chance to work through our issues with professional help. She said she'd made mistakes, but so had I, and that our marriage was worth fighting for. I asked if she'd told her therapist about the Discord server. She said her therapist knew she'd been venting to friends about marital frustration. Yes. I asked if her therapist knew about Clifford and Barry. She said her therapist knew she'd been seeking emotional validation outside the marriage because she wasn't getting it inside the marriage. I told Kira that I wasn't interested in counseling, that I was done being married to someone who viewed me with contempt. She asked how I could be so cold about ending 8 years together. I said she'd ended it herself when she started treating me like a punchline with a paycheck. I was just making it official. Kira stood up and said I'd regret this. That when everything came out in court, I'd realize I'd destroyed a marriage that could have been saved. That her lawyer was building a case that would show I'd been controlling and emotionally manipulative. That I'd isolated her financially. That my actions after discovering the Discord were vindictive and cruel. She said judges didn't look kindly on husbands who locked wives out of their homes and stole their money. I reminded her that it was my house and my money. She said marriage didn't work that way. I said apparently in her mind it did, since her exit strategy explicitly involved taking half of everything I'd earned. She told me I had no idea what I was dealing with, and then she left. Sunday I went to my parents' house for dinner and told them about the meeting. My mom asked if there was any chance Kira was right, that maybe I'd been emotionally unavailable without realizing it. My dad said it didn't matter if I'd been distant when Kira's response was to mock him publicly and plan financial revenge instead of asking for couples therapy. But the question stuck with me. Had I been a bad husband? I thought about the past 6 years, tried to remember conversations where Kira had asked for more emotional connection and I'd shut her down. I couldn't think of any. I remembered her complaining that I worked too much, but also remembered her wanting the expensive vacations and the nice house and the lifestyle that required me working those hours. Monday, my lawyer sent me the official response we were filing to Kira's claims. It included bank statements showing her full access to accounts, credit card records showing her spending patterns, and documentation that I'd paid for over 80% of household expenses. It also included screenshots from the Discord showing her exit strategy, which my lawyer said would counter any claims that I'd surprised her by removing funds. But here's the thing that's keeping me up at night. What if Kira's right that I was emotionally checked out and I just didn't notice because I was busy working and paying bills and trying to be a good provider? What if the Discord server was her breaking point after years of me not seeing her and I'm the villain in her version of this story? No, I'm not doing this. I read those messages. I saw what she wrote. Whatever problems we had in our marriage, her response was cruelty and manipulation and planning to financially destroy me. That's not the behavior of someone who wants to fix things. That's the behavior of someone who wants to win. So, here we are. Divorce proceedings ongoing. Kira building her case that I'm an abusive, controlling husband. Me building my case that she's been planning to rob me blind. We're meeting with lawyers again next week to discuss property division and support payments. Part of me wants this over. Part of me wants to drag it out just to make her suffer longer. Mostly, I'm just tired of the whole thing. But I'm not backing down. She wanted to call me spineless. Wanted to treat me like her trained seal. Wanted to laugh about me with her friends while planning to take everything I'd worked for. Well, the seal learned some new tricks. And Kira is about to find out that spineless and strategic aren't the same thing. Update coming whenever the next disaster hits. Final update. Okay, Reddit. This is probably going to be my last update on this situation unless something absolutely wild happens, which at this point I'm not ruling out because the past 3 months have been completely unhinged. But I think we've finally hit the end of this particular nightmare. So, let me fill you in on how everything concluded. Shout out to everyone who's been following this disaster. And special shout out to the commenter who predicted that Kira's emotional abuse claims would fall apart once the Discord screenshots got in front of a judge. You were absolutely right, and I owe you a beer I'll never be able to buy you. So when I left off, Kira was building her case that I was controlling and emotionally abusive. I was building my case that she'd been planning to financially destroy me. And we were both lawyered up for what was looking like a brutal court battle. My lawyer had scheduled mediation for 3 weeks out, which in divorce terms is basically tomorrow. The week before mediation, things got messy in a way I didn't expect. Barry, remember him? The other affair partner who'd been sending Kira explicit messages about hotels. Yeah. He decided to make himself a problem. Kira had apparently been staying with Maeve since I'd locked her out of the house. And Barry showed up at Maeve's apartment demanding to talk to Kira. Maeve's husband answered the door, didn't know who Barry was, and things escalated. I only know about this because Maeve's husband called me directly, which was awkward because we'd never actually spoken before. He wanted to know what the hell was going on, why some random guy was showing up asking for Kira, and whether his wife was involved in whatever situation had imploded my marriage. I gave him the short version, offered to send him the Discord screenshots, and he said yes. 2 days later, Maeve kicked Kira out. Turns out Maeve's husband was not thrilled to discover his wife had been running a Discord server dedicated to mocking their husbands and strategizing divorces. And he was even less thrilled that Kira's affair partners were now showing up at their home. Kira had to move in with her parents, which at 31 years old must have been humiliating. But Barry wasn't done. He started messaging Kira obsessively, saying they needed to talk about their relationship, about where things were going between them. Kira apparently told him there was no relationship, that it had been a mistake, that she needed to focus on her divorce. Barry didn't take that well. He showed up at her workplace demanding to see her. Her manager got involved, started asking questions about why Kira had personal drama bleeding into the office, whether there were inappropriate relationships happening at work. And because Clifford had already filed harassment complaints about me contacting him, there was already a spotlight on Kira's conduct. The company started an internal investigation. Kira texted me freaking out about it, saying I destroyed her life, that Barry was stalking her because of what I'd done, that she was going to lose her job. I told her Barry was stalking her because she'd been having an affair with him and then tried to cut him off, which was entirely her own doing. She said I didn't understand, that Barry had become unstable, that she was actually scared of him. I told her to file a police report if she was genuinely concerned, but that her relationship with Barry wasn't my problem to solve. She said I was heartless, that we'd been married for 6 years, and didn't that mean I should care about her safety? I said we'd been married for 6 years and she'd spent 18 months calling me a spineless clown while planning to rob me. So, no, I didn't particularly care what Barry did as long as it didn't involve me. She called me a few hours later crying, saying Barry had sent her messages threatening to tell her company everything about their relationship if she didn't talk to him. I asked what exactly Barry knew that her company didn't already know given the ongoing investigation. Kira said Barry had screenshots of their conversations, including messages where she'd talked about using company time for personal meetings and lying on expense reports about client dinners that were actually dates. And there it was. The thing Kira had been so confident would protect her. The arrangements I supposedly didn't know about turned out to be her own stupidity catching up with her. She'd been mixing her affair with expense fraud, and now Barry had evidence. I told her again to handle it herself. She begged me to help her, said if I talked to Barry, maybe he'd back off, that she knew I had influence because I'd gotten Clifford to block her. I laughed, actually laughed out loud on the phone. I told Kira that I'd contacted Clifford once to inform him I knew about the affair and he'd blocked her to cover his own tracks, not because I had some magic power over her affair partners. If Barry was threatening her, that was the consequence of her own choices. She hung up on me. Mediation happened the following Tuesday. Kira showed up with her lawyer and her mother, which my lawyer had said was a bad sign because it meant she was feeling desperate and needed emotional support. We sat in a conference room for 6 hours going through every asset, every account, every piece of property. Kira's lawyer started with the house, arguing it should be considered marital property because Kira had contributed to household maintenance and improvements over 6 years. My lawyer countered with the deed showing my sole ownership, documentation that I'd paid the entire down payment and all mortgage payments from my income, and proof that Kira's contributions to household expenses had been minimal. Then they moved to the joint account money I'd transferred. Kira's lawyer called it theft of marital assets. My lawyer called it protecting my income from someone who'd explicitly planned to drain the accounts. And he presented the Discord screenshots showing Kira's exit strategy. The mediator read through them, and I watched Kira's face go red. Her lawyer tried to spin it as private venting that shouldn't be admissible. My lawyer said planning financial manipulation wasn't venting. It was evidence of intent. The mediator asked Kira directly if she'd been planning to file for divorce after my next promotion in order to maximize her settlement. Kira said she'd been unhappy in the marriage and had discussed options with friends, that it was normal to think about worst-case scenarios. The mediator asked if coordinating affairs with coworkers was also a worst-case scenario. Kira said her personal life wasn't relevant to asset division. The mediator said adultery and planned financial manipulation were absolutely relevant to asset division, especially when there was documented evidence of both. We broke for lunch. Kira tried to corner me in the hallway, asking why I was doing this to her, why I couldn't just let her have a fair settlement and move on with both our lives. I asked what she considered fair. She said half the house value, half the joint savings, and temporary support while she got back on her feet. I told her she wasn't getting any of that. She said the law entitled her to marital property. I said the law also recognized that the house was my separate property purchased before marriage, that I'd removed my own income from joint accounts legally, and that her documented plans to commit financial manipulation meant she'd get minimal support, if any. Kira's mother jumped in saying I was being vindictive, that Kira had given me 6 years of her life and deserved compensation for that. I asked what exactly she'd given me besides contempt and humiliation. Her mother said Kira had been a good wife who'd maintained our home and supported my career. I asked if posting photos of me with vomit emojis counted as support. Her mother didn't have an answer for that. We went back into mediation. Kira's lawyer made one last push for a 50-50 split of everything. My lawyer countered with an offer. Kira could have her personal belongings, her car, which was in her name anyway, and $10,000 as a settlement. In exchange, she'd waive all claims to the house, to my retirement accounts, and to any future support. Kira's lawyer said that was insulting. My lawyer said it was generous considering the evidence we had of her planned financial manipulation and ongoing affairs. The mediator asked what would happen if we couldn't reach an agreement. My lawyer said we'd go to court, present all the discord evidence, including the detailed exit strategies and affair coordination, and let a judge decide. The mediator asked Kira if she understood that going to court would mean everything becoming public record. Kira said yes. The mediator asked if she'd considered how that might affect her current employment situation given the ongoing investigation. Kira went pale. Her lawyer asked for a private consultation. They left the room for 20 minutes. When they came back, Kira agreed to the settlement. $10,000, her personal property, no claim to the house or my accounts. In exchange, I agreed not to pursue her for any portion of the household expenses I'd paid, which actually amounted to way more than $10,000, but I was willing to take the loss just to be done. We signed the paperwork. The mediator said the divorce would be final in 60 days. Kira looked at me and asked if I was happy now, if destroying her life had been worth it. I told her I hadn't destroyed anything. I just stopped letting her destroy me. Her mother said I'd regret this someday. That karma would catch up with me. I said karma already had caught up with someone in this room and it wasn't me. They left. My lawyer shook my hand and said it was one of the most clear-cut cases he'd seen in terms of documented evidence saving his client's assets. I went home to my house, my actual legal property that I'd bought and paid for. And I sat there for a while just processing that it was over. But here's the epilogue because some of you are going to want to know what happened to everyone. Kira's company completed their investigation and fired her. Not for the affairs, but for the expense report fraud that Barry had threatened to expose and that they'd found evidence of once they started looking. She moved back in with her parents permanently. Last I heard, through mutual friends who I'm mostly not in contact with anymore, she's working retail while trying to find another marketing job, which is difficult when your last employer fired you for fraud. Barry apparently backed off once Kira lost her job and moved back home because I guess stalking someone is less appealing when they're not the successful career woman you thought they were. Clifford blocked her on everything and never spoke to her again. Probably because he had his own marriage to protect. Maeve and Sophia both stopped talking to Kira after the whole situation with Barry showing up at Maeve's house. Turns out friendship built on mocking your husbands doesn't survive when one person's drama starts affecting everyone else. Maeve's husband apparently demanded she delete the Discord server and apologize, which she did, and they're working on their marriage. Don't know if that'll succeed, but not my circus anymore. Kira's dad called me once after everything was finalized. Told me he was sorry for how things turned out, that he'd tried to talk sense into Kira, but she'd been convinced she was the victim until the very end. I appreciated that he reached out, told him there were no hard feelings toward him, and that was the last time we spoke. As for me, I'm doing fine. Better than fine, actually. The house is mine. My accounts are secure, and I'm not spending 50% of my income supporting someone who thought I was a joke. I've been on a few dates. Nothing serious yet, but I'm not in a hurry. I'm 34, own my own home, have a good job, and I'm not bitter about relationships in general, just smarter about what I'll accept. I still have all the Discord screenshots saved. Not because I plan to do anything with them, but because sometimes I look at them and remember that I spent 2 months playing the perfect husband while actually planning my exit. And it reminds me that I'm capable of strategic thinking when necessary. The trained seal learned new tricks. The spineless clown grew a backbone. Whatever metaphor you want to use, I figured out how to protect myself. Some people in the comments asked if I ever loved Kira or if this was just about winning. Honestly, I did love her, or loved who I thought she was. But the woman I thought I married wouldn't have posted photos of me with vomit emojis, wouldn't have planned to drain our accounts after my next promotion, wouldn't have coordinated affairs while pretending everything was fine. So maybe I loved someone who never actually existed, and all I did was recognize reality. Would I do anything differently? No. Every step I took was calculated to protect myself from someone who'd spent 18 months planning to destroy me financially. I'm not sorry for securing my house, my money, or my future. I'm not sorry for exposing her behavior to people who needed to know. I'm not sorry for refusing to play the spineless clown anymore. Kira wanted a trained SEAL who'd perform on command and make good money while she mocked him behind his back. Instead, she got a divorce, a damaged reputation, a lost job, and $10,000. If that makes me vindictive, then fine, I'm vindictive. But I'm vindictive with my house and my accounts and my self-respect intact. To everyone who's been following this disaster, thanks for listening, for the advice, for the support, and for occasionally calling me out when I needed it. This community helped me process everything and feel less alone during the worst situation of my life. And to anyone out there who's found themselves in a similar situation, document everything, protect your assets, and don't let anyone convince you that standing up for yourself is the same as being cruel. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who view you with contempt, no matter how much history you share. I came home early with roses and found my wife's Discord server where she called me a spineless clown. Now she's living with her parents while I'm living in the house I paid for. Turns out the clown was never spineless after all.